The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 173 standard days. Across the Orion trade corridor, thousands of merchant vessels detected it. Military patrols logged it. Exploration guilds marked it on their navigation charts. Every civilization heard the same desperate message. This is the Ark colony Elysium. We are under siege. Civilian population, 2.4 million. Defensive systems failing. If anyone can hear this, please, don't let us disappear. Then silence. No one answered. Not because they couldn't. Because they wouldn't. The Galactic Council had already declared the frontier sector lost. The enemy occupying that region wasn't a single empire. It was something far worse. The Vorik Dominion. A civilization that consumed worlds instead of conquering them. They didn't negotiate. They didn't occupy. They erased. Entire star systems vanished after the Vorik arrived. Colonies became lifeless rocks drifting through empty space. The Council had fought them once. The war lasted only 8 months. It cost 12,000 warships. When ended, the Council signed a treaty. Not a peace treaty. A surrender. The agreement was simple. Stay away from Vorik territory. Never interfere with their expansion. If frontier colonies were sacrificed, so be it. Better a few million civilians than another galactic war. Cold, cruel, practical. That was how the Council justified it. So when the SOS from Elysium reached the central networks, no fleets were dispatched. No rescue missions approved. Only automated replies. Requests denied. Military intervention unavailable. Evacuation impossible. Millions waited. No one came. Far away. Beyond mapped space. Past the borders where most civilizations refused to travel. Another receiver caught the signal. It wasn't connected to the Galactic Council. It belonged to Earth. Inside the deep space listening array beneath the Pacific Ocean, alarms echoed through the command center. Operators froze. One transmission. Unknown language. Unknown coordinates. Extreme distress. Within minutes, advanced AI translators began decoding the signal. When the final sentence appeared across the giant display, the room became silent. Please, don't let us disappear. Admiral Marcus Hale stared at the screen. No one spoke. Finally, a young communications officer broke the silence. Sir, the coordinates are outside recognized human space. Another officer added, the Council has already marked the region abandoned. Marcus folded his arms. And the people? Approximately 2.4 million civilians. He looked around the room. What military assets are nearby? An uneasy pause followed. The logistics commander answered carefully. None officially. Marcus smiled. I didn't ask officially. The room suddenly understood. 1 hour later, the emergency session of Earth's Defense Council began. Politicians argued. Scientists warned about unknown enemies. Economists complained about costs. Diplomats reminded everyone that humanity wasn't officially part of the Galactic Council. Then intelligence displayed one final image. Satellite footage. A colony city burning beneath orbital bombardment. Children running toward underground shelters. Hospitals collapsing. Civilian transports exploding while trying to escape orbit. No one spoke after that. The president finally looked toward Admiral Hale. If we intervene, we may start a war. If we don't, Marcus answered without hesitation, then we're no better than everyone else. Silence filled the chamber. One by one, every council member placed their vote. Green, green, green. Unanimous. Earth would answer the SOS. Deep beneath the lunar shipyards, massive blast doors began opening. Machines that hadn't moved in decades slowly awakened. Dust drifted from kilometer-long hulls. Ancient reactors glowed back to life. One by one, the legendary fleet emerged. Ships so old that most citizens believed they were myths. The first expedition fleet, built during humanity's darkest wars. Never defeated, never destroyed. Simply retired. Until now. Massive carriers. Titan-class battleships. Stealth cruisers. Planetary defense destroyers. even experimental flagships that had never been publicly acknowledged. Thousands of engineers watched as reactors ignited across the fleet. Someone whispered, "I thought these ships were scrapped." An old technician smiled. "No. We were waiting for a reason." As Earth's greatest fleet prepared for war, millions across the galaxy still believed Elysium had already been abandoned. They had no idea. Humanity had just begun moving. The first expedition fleet left the lunar shipyards without fanfare. No victory speeches. No media broadcasts. No triumphant music. Only thousands of warships slipping silently into the darkness between the stars. At the head of the formation sailed the flagship HFS Resolute, commanded by Admiral Marcus Hale. Behind it stretched an armada unlike anything the modern galaxy had ever witnessed. Titan-class battleships, heavy carriers, stealth cruisers, missile dreadnoughts, and escort destroyers that had once defended Earth during humanity's earliest interstellar wars. Most alien civilizations believed those legendary ships had been dismantled generations ago. They were wrong. 3 days into the journey, long-range sensors detected a council patrol guarding the entrance to the forbidden frontier. The patrol commander opened a secure channel. "Human fleet, identify yourselves immediately." Marcus answered calmly. "This is Admiral Marcus Hale of the United Earth Fleet. We are responding to a civilian distress signal." The alien commander's expression darkened. "You are entering a quarantined war zone." "We know. The Galactic Council has prohibited all military intervention." Marcus nodded once. "We received the notice." "Then turn back." Marcus looked toward the holographic image of Elysium still burning in his command center. "I can't." The transmission fell silent. Finally, the commander spoke again. "If you continue, you're going alone." Marcus smiled. "We expected that." The channel closed. No council ships followed. None tried to stop them. They simply watched as humanity crossed the border everyone else feared to enter. Meanwhile, on Elysium, the situation had become desperate. The colony's planetary shield had failed 2 days earlier. Entire districts were reduced to smoking ruins. Food reserves were nearly exhausted. Hospitals overflowed with wounded civilians. Governor Celine Aris stood inside the underground command bunker, listening to another casualty report. Orbital Defense Platform 3 destroyed. Refugee Shelter 7 has been overrun. Power reserves at 12%. Every report sounded worse than the last. Her communications officer quietly approached. "Governor." She didn't look up. "Another automated rejection?" "No." She slowly turned. The officer's hands were shaking. "We've received a response." The bunker froze. "Response?" "Yes." "Who?" The officer swallowed hard. "The sender identifies itself as..." He stared at the screen in disbelief. "Humanity." Confused whispers spread across the room. "Humans? I've heard of them. Aren't they the species outside Council territory?" Governor Aris stepped closer. "Read the message." The officer activated the transmission. A calm human voice filled the bunker. "To the people of Elysium. Your signal has been received. Hold your position. Rescue is en route." Nothing more. No promises. No speeches. Just those 8 words. For the first time in months, hope returned to the bunker. Far beyond the colony, another force had also detected humanity's approach. Inside the colossal command ship of the Vorik Dominion, Supreme Warlord Karzul watched the sensor display with amusement. "Identify the incoming fleet." An officer replied, "Unknown configuration. Approximately 300 capital ships and over 1,000 escorts." "Council reinforcements?" "No, Supreme Warlord." "Then who?" The officer hesitated. "The transponder codes identify them as human." The bridge erupted in laughter. "A single young civilization dares challenge the Vorik?" Karzul smiled. "Excellent. Destroy them first. Then finish consuming the colony." Across the stars, 2 fleets accelerated toward the same destination. One sought conquest. The other had come to keep a promise. The distance between the two fleets closed rapidly. Inside the bridge of the HFS Resolute, every display glowed crimson as tactical computers processed thousands of incoming contacts. Enemy fleet confirmed, the operations officer reported. 412 capital ships, approximately 3,000 escorts, multiple carrier groups. A younger officer looked uneasy. Sir, they're outnumbering us nearly 3-1. Admiral Marcus Hale remained calm. Numbers don't win wars. He turned toward the fleet-wide communications console. Open every channel. Within seconds, every human captain saw the admirals standing before them. For 70 years, he began, these ships have slept. Today they remember what they were built to do. The bridges of hundreds of legendary warships fell silent. They abandoned innocent people because it was convenient. They called this colony a lost cause. They're wrong. We didn't cross half the galaxy to negotiate. We came to bring them home. The fleet answered with a single response. For Earth. Thousands of engines roared to maximum output. Aboard the Vorak flagship, Supreme Warlord Karzul watched the approaching formation with growing curiosity. They're accelerating? Yes, Supreme Warlord. They're not taking defensive positions? No. Instead of slowing down, the human fleet charged directly toward the vastly larger Vorak armada. Karzul laughed. Foolish. Prepare the main batteries. Thousands of plasma cannons lit the darkness. The first Vorak barrage crossed space like a storm of blue fire. Impact in 5 seconds, a human officer shouted. Marcus didn't blink. Execute Phantom Formation. Every captain acknowledged. Phantom Formation confirmed. The impossible happened. The human fleet scattered in perfect synchronization. Entire battleships vanished behind clouds of electronic decoys. Cruisers rolled beneath incoming fire with impossible precision. Stealth destroyers disappeared from enemy sensors altogether. The massive plasma barrage struck. Empty space. Vorak gunners stared in disbelief. Impossible. They dodged everything. Before they could recover, human missiles detected. Thousands of silver streaks erupted from hidden launch bays across the fleet. Not hundreds. Thousands. Each missile carried an independent AI capable of changing targets in flight. Vorak point defense systems opened fire. The sky became a web of explosions. But the missiles kept adapting. Changing direction. Splitting into smaller warheads. Searching for weak points. The first Vorak cruiser disappeared in a blinding flash. Then another. Then 5 more. Within 30 seconds, 12 enemy warships had been destroyed. Karzul's smile vanished. Back on Elysium, civilians emerged cautiously from underground shelters. Children pointed toward the heavens. The endless orbital bombardment had suddenly stopped. Instead, the sky was filled with flashes of distant battle. Governor Celine Eris looked through the observation dome as unfamiliar ships entered orbit. One vessel broke formation and transmitted on an open frequency. This is the United Earth Fleet. Our defensive screen is deploying. No civilian vessel will be harmed while we still stand. Moments later, gigantic human battleships positioned themselves between the colony and the Vorak fleet, absorbing enemy fire with enormous energy shields. One refugee whispered through tears, "They're protecting us." Another simply asked, "Why?" No one had an answer, because no one in the galaxy had ever seen a civilization risk everything for strangers. But humanity had, and the fleet of legends had only just begun to fight. The battle above Elysium erupted into complete chaos. Human battleships held the defensive line while evacuation corridors opened beneath their shields. Thousands of civilian transports launched from the surface, climbing toward the safety of Earth's carriers. Inside the HFS Resolute, status reports poured in. First refugee convoy has cleared the atmosphere. Second convoy departing. Enemy reinforcements detected from hyperspace. A tactical hologram expanded across the bridge. Another Vorak fleet. Over 200 additional warships. The operations officer looked pale. "Sir, if they join the battle, we'll be surrounded." Marcus Hale studied the display for only a second. Then we end this before they arrive. He pressed a hidden authorization key. Omega Protocol. For a brief moment, every bridge across the human fleet fell silent. Old captains exchanged knowing smiles. So, it's finally time. Deep inside the flagship, massive armor doors unlocked for the first time in decades. Ancient reactors, sealed since humanity's last Great War, awakened with a deep metallic rumble. Power surged through forgotten systems. Across the fleet, the same transformation occurred. Additional armor plates shifted into place. Hidden weapon ports opened along the hulls. Gigantic spinal cannons extended from the bows of the Titan-class battleships. These ships had never been ordinary warships. They had been built with a secret second form, one that even the Galactic Council had never known existed. The fleet's power output doubled, then tripled. Warning alarms echoed aboard every Vorik vessel. Unknown energy signatures detected. Enemy reactors exceeding predicted limits. Supreme Warlord Karzul stood from his command throne. What are they doing? Before anyone could answer, Marcus gave the order. All Titans, fire. A dozen beams of brilliant white light tore across the battlefield. They didn't explode on impact. They simply erased everything in their path. Vorik battleships disappeared in an instant, cut cleanly in half before drifting apart in silence. One beam pierced 3 cruisers before striking the enemy command carrier. Its shields collapsed like glass. Explosions rippled across the colossal vessel. For the first time in centuries, the Vorik fleet broke formation. They're retreating. No, Marcus corrected quietly. They're panicking. Human cruisers immediately exploited the opening. Stealth destroyers emerged behind enemy lines, disabling engines instead of destroying ships. Carrier wings swarmed the battlefield, protecting refugee transports while precision strikes crippled Vorik weapons. Humanity wasn't fighting for revenge. They were fighting to save lives. On the surface of Elysium, millions watched the impossible unfold. The monsters that had terrorized the galaxy for generations were falling back. One refugee transport landed safely inside the human carrier HFS Guardian. Children stepped aboard, expecting frightened soldiers. Instead, human medics greeted them with blankets, food, and water. A little girl looked up at a young Marine. "Were you sent by the Council?" The Marine smiled gently. "No." "Then, why did you come?" He knelt beside her. "Because someone asked for help." Tears filled the eyes of the adults nearby. No one had ever answered their cries before. Far beyond the battlefield, the arriving Vorik reinforcement fleet exited hyperspace. Its commander looked toward the burning wreckage of hundreds of Vorik warships. Then at the untouched human battle line. His voice trembled. "Transmit to all ships." "What are your orders, Commander?" He never took his eyes off the human fleet. "Turn around. We are not fighting legends." The battle was over. For the first time in nearly 2 centuries, the Vorik Dominion had abandoned a battlefield. Their surviving warships fled into hyperspace, leaving behind burning wreckage that drifted silently above Elysium. No pursuit order came from Admiral Marcus Hale. Instead, he gave a different command. Stand down. Recover escape pods. Rescue anyone still alive. One officer looked surprised. "Sir, even the Vorik survivors?" Marcus nodded. "They're prisoners now. We're soldiers, not executioners." Across the fleet, thousands of human rescue craft launched into the debris field. Escape pods from both sides were collected. Wounded civilians received treatment beside captured Vorik warriors. Many of the alien prisoners stared in disbelief. One finally asked a human medic, "Why save your enemy?" The medic smiled while sealing the soldier's injuries. "Because if we stop being human, then they win." The Vorik warrior lowered his head, unable to answer. Below, the skies over Elysium slowly cleared. For the first time in months, children walked outside without hearing orbital bombardments. Families emerged from shelters and looked upward. Instead of falling fire, they saw hundreds of human ships forming a protective ring around their world. Governor Celine Eris boarded the HFS Resolute to personally thank the fleet. Standing before Admiral Hale, she struggled to find the right words. The entire galaxy heard our SOS. They all turned away. You didn't. Marcus looked through the bridge viewport at the recovering planet. My people have an old belief. When someone calls for help, you answer. Governor Eris bowed her head. Then today, you didn't just save a colony. You restored our faith that honor still exists. Weeks later, representatives from every major civilization gathered in an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber was silent as battle recordings played across the massive holographic display. Human warships shielding civilian transports. Human medics treating enemy wounded. The fleet of legends standing alone against impossible odds. When the recording ended, no one spoke. Finally, one council elder broke the silence. We abandoned them. Another lowered his eyes. They succeeded where we refused to try. For generations, humanity had been viewed as an ambitious young species. After Elysium, that perception vanished forever. They became known by a different name, the Guardians of the Frontier, not because they possessed the strongest weapons, but because they never ignored a cry for help. Months later, a new emergency beacon activated on the edge of explored space. Before fear could spread, a single message appeared across every known communication network. SOS received. Humanity is already on the way. Merchant crews smiled. Border colonies cheered. Even hardened military captains felt relief, because everyone knew what those words meant. If humans said they were coming, no one would be left behind. And somewhere beyond the stars, the legendary fleet continued its quiet patrol, not seeking conquest, not demanding tribute, but waiting for the next voice that needed hope. Because empires are remembered for the worlds they conquer. Legends are remembered for the lives they save.